The House of Representatives passes a 30,000 naira minimum wage bill. I'm Linda Akibe, and you're welcome to the Gavel. The House of Representatives has passed a minimum wage bill of 30,000 naira, and this decision was taken after the House held a public hearing on the bill. That public hearing brought together organized labor, representatives from the federal and state governments, as well as the private sector. At the hearing, organized labor was insistent on a minimum wage of 30,000 naira. And President Buhari had sent a minimum wage bill of 27,000 naira to the National Assembly for passage. Let's go back to the public hearing and see how the House of Representatives passed the bill.
These members of labor unions left no one in doubt about where they stand on the minimum wage issue. They are firmly opposed to the 27,000 naira proposed in the minimum wage bill, which President Muhammadu Buhari sent to the National Assembly for passage. The House of Representatives convened this public hearing to get the views of the concerned parties on the minimum wage bill.
There are obvious reasons why the House has to give accelerated consideration to this very crucial bill. It is a bill that is long overdue, as the current national minimum wage, which was fixed in 2011, has become unrealistic due to the supervening economic developments in the nation. As most of us here must be aware, the National Assembly need to go on a short recess for the purpose of the general elections, which is less than 3 weeks from now. We must therefore conclude this public hearing as quickly as possible today to enable the House proceed with further legislative actions on it at its plenary tomorrow, as already resolved in our last sitting. More importantly, therefore, the consideration and passage of this bill is equally exigent because our country is at the brink of a national industrial crisis that we can least afford at this time. Passions are extremely high within the entire organized labor on this issue. Even before the consideration of the bill by Parliament, labor leaders have already rejected the 27,000 naira recommended to us by the executive arm as national minimum wage.
The president of the Nigeria Labour Congress explained the reason for their insistence on an increase in the minimum wage of workers.
All of us must sympathize with the condition of Nigeria. 30,000 translates to 1,000 naira per day. 30,000 naira translates to 50 naira per meal for every member of the family. If you have a family of 6, husband and wife and 4 children, it translates to 50 naira per meal.
The Minister of Labour tried to explain the federal government's decision to peg the minimum wage at 27,000 naira, but his presentation was punctuated by chants and boos from the audience.
I also want you to note that the President of the Federation, knowing fully well the capacity and what the federal government can do, had instructed the budget minister and the finance minister to look at this particular issue in such a way that there will be sustainability of whatever amount is agreed on. Because whatever amount is agreed on will have consequential effect upstairs. You must move people upstairs. Because having moved the lowest person from 18,000 to 27,000, you have encroached on a bigger level. And once you encroach on bigger levels, you move them up, and they get more money.
The Director General of the Budget Office also says the federal government is taking the minimum wage issue seriously.
The ability of the federal government to pay often tends to be taken for granted. And so far, thankfully, the federal government has been able to pay its workers, not owe them as some other states. But as you heard from the Honorable Minister for Finance, when any employer government, business, whoever begins to spend more than 70% of its revenue on, personnel cost, that is not sustainable.
Besides insisting on 30,000 naira, organized labor also proposed some amendments in the bill, which includes the removal of the clause which exempts organizations with less than 25 workers from paying the proposed minimum wage. After the public hearing, the House of Representatives sat the following day on Tuesday, January 29, to consider the minimum wage bill. After quickly scaling first and second reading and passing through the public hearing stage, the House of Representatives passed the new national minimum wage bill, but not without some amendments.
Of importance was the report of the tripartite committee. So specifically from the executive bill that the executive sent, the only thing that was touched, if there is any, is the issue of the basic, or what we call the minimum wage itself. And of course, from the experience of the last few months, without standing somehow, we decided for the first time that we will leave the bill as it was presented to us, because most of the provisions of the bill itself are fantastic, and we don't need to start changing them. The other thing that is important there is that one of the provisions now is that the bill will now be reviewed, when it becomes the act of the National Assembly, it will now be reviewed every 5 years. So that's one of the provisions. Another provision that is important is that the issue of minimum wage of 30,000 naira does not cover those who employ less than 25 people. It's important, it's part of the provision, those who employ between 0 to 25 people.
By his submission, the committee recommends 30,000 naira as the new minimum wage. The House adopted the recommendation, and the issue of when the law will come into effect came to play.
For you to be able to implement, there must be sufficient budgetary provision. So if, for instance, Mr. President signs in a few weeks, where is the budgetary provision? That means it will take effect the moment he signs, in 30 days' time. So that's why we need a commencement date, giving them room and enough time to make adjustments to the budget. We pass the budget, and then it takes effect from whatever date we agree.
A law takes effect or commences from the date that it is signed. So the moment the president appends his signature, the law becomes effective. If we start saying we are taking another 6 months, where we're introducing some controversy into this bill. So to me, the bill as passed now is good law. The day the president puts his red biro or green biro and signs it, from that day, the bill becomes effective. That is the law.
To see how we can include this 30, the provision, and make the provision of the 30,000 minimum wage. Now that, we're in the process of considering the budget. To me, it is known that the very day the president assents to any bill, it becomes effective. So if the president decides to assent on this law tomorrow, it has become effective. So I don't see any reason why we are getting worried about the issue of when this law will become effective or not.
The lawmakers also resolved to insert a clause in the bill which states that the bill shall come into effect once it is signed by the president.
Bill read the third time and passed.
Then the Speaker formally announces his defection to the main opposition party, PDP.
Due to irreconcilable differences with the APC at the state level, I had resigned my membership of SEM and will be seeking re-election on the platform of the PDP.
The House also concluded debate on the 2019 budget and passed it through second reading. It has now been referred to the Appropriations Committee and other related subcommittees.
The House of Representatives has passed the Company and Allied Matters Act. The Senate passed this legislation in November 2018. Now, this bill, called KAMA, is the critical legislation which, if passed to law, is expected to make Nigeria's business environment as competitive as its counterparts around the world. The bill is also expected to make the business environment easier for small and medium-scale entrepreneurs. We had a chat with the Senior Special Assistant, Legislative Matters and Strategy to the Senate President, Kingsley Amaku, to find out more about the bill.
I think for every watcher of the Nigerian economy, the passage of this bill is a major development and a positive one. Now, I say it's a major development because, to a large extent, the Companies and Allied Matters Act represents the most far-reaching business regulatory law that we have, and has a lot of impact on foreign direct investment in Nigeria, SME development, and the ease of doing business generally. So what you may ask are the key deliverables. Why do we need it now? When the initial KAMA was passed, nobody had envisaged the level of technological development that has happened within the last 3 decades. So today we have conversation over the phone, have meetings digitally, we have transaction online. This hasn't been the things that the old regime contemplated. So, to a large extent, we have been backwards in our business processes as a result of the KAMA. So, what this amendment has done is to provide a huge leap for us in terms of integrating technology and the ease that technology has brought to doing business in Nigeria. Some of this ease include that today with this KAMA, companies can hold meetings via telephone, and they can file their processes online through emails and through other processes, technological processes. But if you go down to the nitty-gritty of the cost of doing business, SMEs were expected to file and engage the regulatory institution the same way that big companies did. So as an SME, you are expected to file audit reports, employ secretaries, have lawyers. These are the things that were not cost effective for the development of our SMEs. So all of that has been cut out now. The new KAMA, the new regime, has introduced the new what they call the limited liability partnership, which many companies or countries have introduced in their business regime. So with this new addition, people who are into partnership can enjoy the status of the tax that partnership can offer them, and also the limited liability that their members face. So all what you're seeing is that today we would now have, if this bill is signed into law, the same number of opportunities that other companies, other countries have for their companies, and this will go a long way in improving our competitiveness. People who want to come into the Nigerian environment always ask, why do I have to have 2 members before I open a company?